For the longest time, there was a rumor being spread around the Dragon Ball community that in the Buu Saga, Toriyama had originally planned for Piccolo to be the one taken over by Babidi's magic instead of Vegeta, becoming Majin Piccolo. While this conceptually sounds insanely cool just from a design standpoint, and because we could see Piccolo vs. Goku Round 2, unfortunately, this is completely made up, and Toriyama never showed any indication of actually planning to do this. However, let's say that during the Buu Saga, Piccolo was the one chosen by Babidi for whatever given reason, and thus awakened the old evil that used to be in Piccolo's heart to turn him into a Majin Namekian. How strong would he be? Would he be able to beat Goku at the time? Or was ultimately Vegeta the best choice Babidi had? Let's find out. To begin, we need to first establish how strong Piccolo was during the Majin Buu Saga, which is actually more complicated than you may think. Our first benchmark is that Piccolo got substantially stronger according to Goku after he had trained in the Time Chamber, meaning that during the Cell games, Piccolo was a lot stronger than he was against Android 17, but according to Cell, he was still weaker than Grade 2 Trunks and Vegeta. Unfortunately, for Piccolo, the 7-year time skip of the Buu Saga did not pay him any favors. During the Budokai tournament, Piccolo immediately forfeits upon seeing Shin, implying that Shin was actually way stronger than him. The Daizenshu follows up on this and says outright that Shin was not only stronger, but that he was far superior to Piccolo in strength. This doesn't inherently mean much if we don't know how strong Shin is, however, once again, the guides are very helpful in figuring this out. El Manga Legendario says that due to Shin's evident inferiority to Dabura, that he's about as strong as Super Saiyan Goku was during the Cell games. This means that somehow, even after spending time in the Time Chamber plus 7 years of training, with what we can assume to be pretty active amounts, Piccolo never surpasses Goku's or normal Perfect Cell's level of power in the Cell games. While we never get a direct comparison, it is also strongly implied that base Gohan, Goku, and Vegeta are stronger than Piccolo at this point, as Babidi specifically points out their energies over everyone else's when he first senses their power, with Piccolo being wiped out instantly by Dabura alongside Krillin, meaning their energy was likely insufficient in comparison. Thus, in the Buu Saga, Piccolo is at best weaker than Super Saiyan Goku and Vegeta, and at worst weaker than their base forms. Does this mean that Majin Piccolo would be drastically weaker than even Super Saiyan Majin Vegeta? Not necessarily. To explain why, we need to go over what the Majin transformation actually does. As described in the Daizenshu, Babidi's magic does not simply power up a fighter, but pushes out their hidden power beyond its limits. This means that Babidi's magic is essentially a superior version to both Elder Guru's power-up and Elder Kai's power-up, as both of these abilities just push someone's hidden power to its limits. The power gain from having one's hidden power drawn out is not uniform across the board in Dragon Ball and is different for every person. For example, Babidi's henchman Spopovich had his power multiplied by a couple of times compared to before. For Goku, Super Saiyan 3 in the Buu Saga, which actually does the same thing and brings out a Saiyan's latent potential, it increased his power by 4 times Super Saiyan 2. For Gohan, it raised his power so that his base became stronger than his former power in Super Saiyan 2, which at a supreme low ball was an 100 times increase. So what does this mean for Piccolo? Well, in Dragon Ball Super, we finally saw what it would be like if Piccolo's hidden potential was unleashed when he asked for Shenron to draw his latent potential in the exact same way that Guru did, which, as we've seen, is probably the worst kind of latent potential unlocking. Either way, this gave Piccolo access to his Power Awakening form, which allowed him to at least put up a fight against the Gamma androids, especially in the manga. These androids have been stated by both Piccolo as well as guides multiple times to be equal in power to Goku and Vegeta, meaning that in the manga they are likely comparable to the level of strength of Mastered Ultra Instinct in either the Moro or Granola arc. Given how Piccolo was easily bodied by someone way weaker than Super Saiyan Blue level, it's safe to say that Power Awakening gave Piccolo a boost comparable between the difference between Blue and Mastered Ultra Instinct. While we don't know the exact multiplier of Ultra Instinct or Sign, it is described as the ultimate form and is likely superior in multiplication of strength compared to anything that's come before. This is pretty consistent with how Ultra Instinct is superior to Blue Kaioken's multiplier, and even while using an incredibly weak version of UI in his base form, Goku became comparable to Super Saiyan Vegeta. While it's impossible to say, it's at least pretty clear that Ultra Instinct, even in comparison to Blue, is likely a larger jump than pretty much any other transformation. So, if in the Buu Saga, Babidi gave Piccolo the Majin Amp, while he wouldn't necessarily achieve the Power Awakening form, his hidden potential and power would be unleashed by an even greater degree than it technically was in Dragon Ball Super. However, to be fair, Piccolo in Super is a lot stronger as a baseline than he was in Z, as he's able to fight alongside a Gohan who could fight Kefla, but even proportionally, this boost would be disgusting. The question becomes, how would this affect the actual story of Dragon Ball? And unfortunately, I think having this godly Piccolo appear far too early in the story is probably less interesting than having Vegeta become the Majin. The main problem is that either way, it's likely that this Piccolo would become far too powerful for Babidi to contain, if even Super Saiyan Vegeta was too much for him. Given how Vegeta was able to keep the Majin Amp while doing what he wants to do, it's likely that Majin Piccolo would be strong enough to end the arc right then and there. Even if Buu was somehow awakened, he probably could have easily handled Buu himself and thus avoided the entire rest of the conflict altogether. But what do you think? How strong would Majin Piccolo be? Would he be like his power awakening form, or was that level of potential only available to him in Dragon Ball Super? As this was super hypothetical, I want to know your own interpretations of how strong this version of Piccolo might be, especially with the greater understanding of his power that we now have from Dragon Ball Super. Sorry for the shorter upload this week, guys. I'm traveling soon, so I don't have time to do a full-length video. Either way, make sure to tell me how I'm wrong in the comments down below. See ya.